I'm joined today by Bob. Hello, Bob.
Hello, Andy.
Now, we met at the Hand in Hand conference, and we need to go there first. It was not that many weeks ago in West Bromwich, and it was the Hand in Hand conference, which is basically resourcing, provisions, ideas, teaching for people, especially those who work in or around churches. It's the second year that I've been, and I absolutely love the vibe, the energy of so many excited people all in a room together.
Oh, it is a joy, a delight, and a bizarreness all at once as well, though, because it is a children's ministry conference. So the people you get in the space, they range from the wild and wacky and wonderful to the let's be sit and be quiet and do some fuzzy felt. So it's a whole wide range of people. It's
Which
great though.
I mean, I loved it. There were glitter cannons around. I think I saw at one point, which it's
Yeah.
just brilliant. But everything from the welcome. If you've not been to the Hand in Hand conference, I really can urge you to go because it's very very good. How many times have you been and rural missions?
So this was only the second time we've been, and only the second time I've been. But actually, I started out my ministry 25 years ago in children's work and youth work. So I've known of it, but I've never really attended. But when I took over leading rural missions 2 years today, happy birthday to my job. Um, I just thought we need to be in that space because it's the biggest children's ministry conference in the country. So we'd be silly not to be there if we're serious about supporting the church to love children, love families, as well as love young people, love adults, love older adults, all those kind of things. But we had to be there, so we took the plunge, and this year we sponsored it. So that was a big plunge, but definitely worth it.
I think I said, have you spent any money to get here? You said we are sponsoring it, so that probably answers
Yeah.
that one. Which is
Yeah, yeah. Our logo was on everything. We were all over the place. But because we are, despite us being 38 years as a charity, not many people heard of us until I took over. So it was a real, how do we get our brand out there? How do we get known? How do we get seen as the serious players in this world? Because we want to love the church, we want to love God's people, and we want to see children come to know Him. So why not put our money where our mouth is and go, let's come support and love and exhibit?
Which was great because I got to meet you. We met some amazing exhibitors. We had loads of live radio, loads of interviews, which I mean, I personally love. But we get to meet so many great people in very different contexts.
Mm.
For you, for Hand in Hand Conference, you've mentioned supporting everything from the younger to the older. Let's just have a real simple overview for people who haven't heard of Real Missions. And I actually had, I actually knew what you were, who you were.
Oh.
But I know. But for folk who don't, what's Rural Missions? What's the mission of Rural Missions?
So it almost is what you see is what you get. We are about rural communities, rural churches, and helping them to be more missional. So we go and support rural churches of any denomination, any kind, to think through, to process, to explore what it means for every part of the church to get behind mission. And mission can be as simple as when I'm having a cup of coffee and a piece of cake with my next door neighbor, maybe I could share something about what Jesus means to me. Maybe I can offer to pray for them. And actually, we want to support that. We want to help them think and be more missional. And we do that through consultations, resources, training, events, networks. But everything we do is at no cost. So we don't charge the church a penny because if you're a church of 12 in the middle of the sticks, you're a bit burnt out, a bit concerned, and actually you just need someone to come and go, life is a bit of a mess at the minute, but God's good. Let's refocus back in on Him. Let's focus on how He could transform our communities. Then, what a beautiful thing we can offer to the church and to Christians in rural communities. Needless to say, we will go and help urban, but we might charge you so we can go and support the rural for free.
I like the sound of that a lot. In fact, I like the heart of that a lot.
Mm,
You're getting people who can help to help you to help others. I mean, that
yeah.
surely isn't that kind of the very essence of the gospel of we help others so they can help others, and it's a ripple effect on the lake.
Yeah, yeah. We've not got a a special program up our sleeve. It's not just a one program fits all. It's a let's come and have a chat. Let's get you to consider what it looks like for your church, for your context, for your community, for your neighbor, and let's take it from there because I'm sick of being siloed into spaces and our charity's got all the answers. I'm like, we haven't got all the answers. We've just got a willing heart and a servant heart. And so we're talking to other organizations, other charities going, how can we do this together? Because the rural is underrepresented, underloved, undersupported. So let's do this together. And in that is where the kingdom comes.
I'd get a big amen from me on that one.
Yeah.
I want to come back into the fact this is your second year as in your role within Rural Missions. Let's come back to that a
Yeah.
little bit later because obviously you're talking about 25 years previous. You were starting out in
Mm.
ministry life, working with children, young people, families. Where did faith begin for you, though? Because that's you helping others. Where did it come into your life?
Yeah, so that is an interesting story. So I come from a non-faith background. I've got a half brother, half sister from my mum's first marriage that I grew up with, and they grew up with my dad as their dad. But sadly, when I was 13, they separated. They both had affairs, went their own way. But then my dad held my mum hostage in our house and ended up in prison. My mum ended up in hospital, and sadly, there are reasons behind it, but she did drop all charges against him, so there was no comeback. And so at 13, I was like, what's the point to life? Like, there is no reason for any of this. And I fell in with the wrong crowd. I did my own thing, got into alcohol, got into drug addiction, inadvertently ended up in a coven. This is a very potted history, by the way, but there was just something in me searching but couldn't find an answer. And in the midst of all this, going from an A-star student to a down and out, at the age of 16, I happened to walk into my town centre. So I'm from Mansfield in Nottinghamshire, and the churches together had started a youth club. And it was above in an old snooker hall in the town centre. And I just happened to wander in, received the greatest welcome that I've ever had. So I was a goth, full on chains, makeup, the lot. I had a knife concealed down my leg. I was quite a gruesome character. But the first person to greet me was a guy in a baseball cap and a tracksuit who gave me a free pint of Pepsi and said, "Oh, who are you? Tell us your story." And just by me walking in there, I knew something was different. So I went in for 2 weeks. I went in every day because it was open every day. And I just took it all in. There was people from all walks of life, young people. There was no religion pushed on them, but they gently said, "We're going to Soul Survivor next week, so the place is going to be shut. Actually, if you want to come with us, we'd love you to. We'll pay for your place." And so I was like, okay. My first foray into a church service, apart from a funeral or a wedding, was in a cowshed in Shepton Mallet with a rock band leading worship, no pews, no organ, and all of this. And I watched, I saw people, I saw the presence of God just in that space. And I was like, I know some of your stories and I want what you have because you've got a peace, you've got a strength, you're going through this and you have a savior in the midst of this. So I turned to the youth worker the next day and said, "What is it?" And he explained the gospel in 1 minute, the very simplistic version. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm in." And he said, "Can I pray for you?" I was like, "No, because I'm annoyed that you've not told me until I'm at my lowest point. I'm 16 years of age. Not a single person has told me this until today." And so I did a bit of fuming. And then that evening, I gave my life to the Lord. I was whisked off into a separate room to be gathered around a few seasoned prayer warriors for an hour to deal with a few bits and pieces. But I was instantly healed, instantly set free from my addictions. I even rang both parents and reconciled that night because I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, God had met me, changed my life. And so I turned to the youth worker and said, no one is doing this without knowing what I now know. So I got back from Soul Survivor and went straight into full-time ministry.
Wow. I mean, you say part of history. There's a few things in
Yeah,
there we've got to come back on. Um,
yeah.
Soul Survivor. I mean, I went to I think was it called Greenbelt, which was a sort of Midlands similar kind of basic idea, I guess. Many years ago, and it was a great time of youth turning
Mm.
up, and it was very relaxed. And there were lots of people who were very much I am walking with God, and people who were well, I'm coming camping, so leave me alone. There's a climbing frame, sort of thing, and
Yeah.
you've got these extremes. And it sounds like in a similar way, you've got that going on at what was Soul Survivor back then. But obviously that made a thing. But here's the one I want to pick up on. No one had told you before
Yeah.
about this stuff. In your role now, how much of that is driving what you're doing today?
I think without a doubt, it's been my driver since day one. So across my ministry, I've been a children's youth and families pastor. I've led a schools agency. I've worked for Scripture Union and Youth for Christ as their missions director. And so even now, I'm like, God doesn't leave a space unattended. You're in your village, you're in your town, you're in your street, you're in your family for a reason because God has a plan to transform that space that you're in. And so if I can help 12 people, 20 people in a village to really get what it means that my neighbor needs companionship through hardship, my the person down the road needs to know that there is safety and security, that there is a peace, that there can be healing physically, emotionally, spiritually, then what a beautiful sight that could be. We're all placed in the positions that we are for a reason, for a purpose.
Mm,
Like my family are still all on a journey. None of them are yet Christians, but they're exploring faith because of the way that I can be for them and with them. And so that is still what drives me today for rural missions is if I can help your church do what it's called to do, and that's to be Jesus in your community, then job done. Like that's the heart of it all. Jesus says, go and make disciples. He actually says, therefore go. It's an imperative. It's not a if I can be bothered. If I've got a few moments, it's a crack on and do what you're called to do and introduce people to me. And so, yeah, let's see the kingdom come, his will be done, and let's see transformation because that will solve out so many of our problems in this country and beyond if we all came to know Jesus and lived as he called us to, because that's where the heavenly comes in. That's where
mm.
perfection comes back.
And quite evidently, I'm not going to say what was your relationship with your parents when they split up because hey, it was it. But you have a half brother and sister.
Yeah.
How did that part of the family unit move on? I mean, did you retain kind of communication with them? Because having been, I mean, I've got three half brothers. We're completely not together because it just was not healthy. But how did you find that part of your family life carry on?
So nothing changed with them because for me, they were the ones that. So because my dad was my dad, he wasn't really the way that he was to them. And so they did feel some of the brunt of abuse and stuff over the years. They're 6 and 8 years older than me. So they shielded me from a lot of stuff. They kept me out the house. I knew their friends. We did all that sort of stuff when I was growing up. So nothing has really changed. I continue with them. Like my brother is living with my mum at the moment because sadly he's going through cancer treatment and has been for a little while. So no, the relationships are good. I see my mum every week. I take my 4-year-old boy Ruben to go see Nanny and Uncle Day Day. Like I see my Auntie Libby, my sister often. My dad, I keep trying, like we are reconciled, but it's more on him that I don't have him communicating with me much. Um, but he's been through quite a lot of trauma since, and I still think he still holds some of that. But what better person to be praying for and keep encouraging than those that need it the most? And so yeah, things are good between us. nothing really changed for. They're my brother and sister. I only say half brother, half sister when I tell the story because it helps people to understand. But they're my brother and sister. It's simple as.
And then I want to come back to the youth club as well because you walked
Yeah.
in 2 weeks you're there every day. Was that a holiday time? Was that a school time? So just give us an idea of ages and where's that in life?
So I just finished my last GCSE exam. So it was open every night anyway, even during school term. So Saturdays it was open all day. Sundays it was open if you wanted to come to the Bible study that they held in there after one of the local church services. So it was a whole thing. Like I spent 6 years then helping to lead that space, and we went into schools. We did primary school assemblies and lessons, and secondary schools, and Christian unions and mission weeks. So it was a beautiful place to be because the churches went, we need to do youth work, and together we do it much better than if we do it on our own.
2 weeks you go in there. It sounds like such a really overly complicated first moment of here's a pint of Pepsi. And this is the thing that baffles me, having done children's work. We're looking for these super ultra complicated, clever, multi-layered strategies when the thing that you said, which is the most important, which I've heard so many times, somebody said in one way or another, I want to hear your story.
Yeah,
That breaks all the barriers because people don't get to share them. They get asked to tell you a little bit or a piece of it, but when someone says, "Tell me a story,"
yeah.
you want to talk, don't you?
Yeah, and it was so interesting because there wasn't anything fancy there. There was a big open hall where generally the goths and the grebos used to hang out. Uh, there was a single pool table. There was a couple of Xboxes and a PlayStation. You could get a pint of Pepsi for 80p and a chip cob for 80p. It was a real like just come and be. And then sometimes some Christians would sit around the table and they'd open a Bible or they'd chat together about stuff. And it was in those moments I'd sit close by or even sit at the table and go, "Nah, you're wrong."
But asking that question, I've chatted to folk who work with older folk or people in football, or it doesn't really matter what the grouping of a thing is. It's
Mm,
just taking the time to say, "Can you tell me a story?" I was chatting to someone recently about loneliness and how that's so dangerous, but it's worse than cancer. But this is what blew my mind from a doctor. But actually, the church could cure loneliness today
yeah,
if we just wanted to, because we
mm,
actually have not just the answer, we actually have the mechanisms in place already.
yeah. And there is something beautiful about the church in the way that we're equipped to do that. And I just think we just need to take it seriously because all too often on a Sunday morning, you can get into the rhetoric of how you doing? I'm okay. How are you doing? I'm okay. And actually our church, I believe we're pretty good at it. When we ask, how are you? We actually mean it most of the time. And you can see some great conversations happening and people connecting because we're taking time for one another.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we can just keep rushing through life, keep doing everything we can, rather than just stopping and going, how are we really? Tell me what are you up to today? As you say, tell me your story.
Mm.
That's half of what mission is.
Yeah.
It's being present with people and then being Jesus' presence with people.
It really is. But I like you replicating the part where you started into your faith journey effectively, because hand in hand, I was really struggling. I had water, and you gave me a can of Pepsi, which was quite a nice little circle. Now I've heard that part of your life, because actually that was really valuable to me because I was struggling. We had a bit of water that wasn't really cutting it. My voice was really struggling. Still not 100% on the voice. And yet it was such a simple thing of it brought so much joy of thank you. You're in the middle
Yeah.
of nowhere. You can't just go out and get what you want. Someone provides this thing, it's kind of Pepsi, but it changed my world in that moment. It does not have to be complicated.
Yeah. I hope they sent a few over because I did send a
Four. We
few.
got four.
Oh, that's all right then.
We got four. It was four. It wasn't just the
Yeah.
one. They weren't getting nicked along the way. But
Yeah.
the thing is,
But
it made a difference.
But it's exactly the same. I was at the New Wine Leaders Conference last week and we were exhibiting, and the person next to us um, set up their stall. And I said, look, just behind our stall, there's a box, there's chocolate, there's crisps, there's a crate of Pepsi Max there. And he's like, hey, what do you mean? I'm like, help yourself. If you want one, two, help yourself. As long as you don't eat everything, I think we should, there should be enough to share about. And he's like, well, you don't know this, but I was meant to have a delivery yesterday of 2 crates of Pepsi Max because that's pretty much all I ever drink, and they've not come. And I've not got space because there's only me here. Like, how am I meant to get out? And I'm like, well, it just so happens then. There you go. And God uses, God provides. I'm currently doing the 40 acts from stewardship, and it's really good to reflect on how can we be generous because I didn't have much growing up. I wouldn't say I'm particularly affluent now. Like but we get by. But there will always be a space where we can be generous financially with what we have, with who we are, with our time, with our voice. Like, how can we be more generous as individuals? Because it then reflects to the people around us. If I'm generous with my next door neighbor and we have coffee and cake, and then they go, why do you do this? Well, because Jesus loves me and he loves you and he calls us into community. Like it's a talking point. People stop when you're generous because they just don't expect it.
I totally agree. It can really shock people. I gave somebody one of our magazines one time, and they were just you could see the kind of well, I can have this and keep it, yeah, but why? Well, I just felt like you needed it, so have it, take it with you,
Mm.
and it was just lovely. We've given away coasters sometimes to folk who just look sad. It's a coaster. It's not that exciting. Might have a silly little joke on it, but it can be so transforming because someone's what you mean. You actually saw me. You saw I was not okay, and you gave me something. And that interaction right there. We're not doing it to be clever. We're not trying to be
Yeah.
clever evangelists. We're just trying to love people because it matters to me. If I finish a conversation and someone's smiling at the end, hey, I've done what I needed to do because they're feeling better than when we sat down.
Yeah. And like last night, we're doing an alpha course at our church. And so I offered to do the meal last night. I try and do a couple whilst we're doing it. And I did have someone come up to me during it and say, why are you doing this? Like, don't you lead a charity? Like, you're one of the leaders of the church as well in your spare time, and you've got a family at home. Like, why are you cooking? And I'm like, because it's the way that I can serve this Alpha course. It's the way I can serve the church. It's the way I can serve this community. I only made bangers and mash, love. Like, there's nothing special going on. But you've got 40 of you now, fully fed, chatting about Jesus. Like, what better way could there be to spend my time?
Which is an interesting question of itself.
Yeah.
Let's move on a bit then. So we've got your early faith. You were goth. You met this guy who said, "Here's a pint of Pepsi," and became a conversation, which became a journey of faith. Basically, 2 weeks later, which is amazing. I know the journey will have been before that, but how did you how did you actually get into full time ministry? You've talked about some of the bits you've done, but how did
Yeah.
you? I mean, what was your first church job when you were working? How did you get into that?
So, so I did turn to the youth worker that night and say, no one has to go through this. So the day that I got back, I volunteered, and because it was the end of August, I started a gap year straight away with the charity that ran the youth centre and went into schools. Like, hopefully, no one turns off at this point, but the organisation at that point was called ISIS. They now go by their full title of In Christ in Schools, because a religious organization called ISIS is not a good thing to have on my CV.
Oh,
Um, but he took me on. I was discipled, mentored. I was going into around 60 schools across that time, uh, going running that youth club. So I spent 5 years, two on gap years at £40 a week, and then I got upgraded to £50 a week. And then for my final couple of years there, I was moved to minimum wage, which was what, 8 grand a year. So it's not much more than the 50 quid a week I was on. But it was great. I loved doing it. I knew that that's what I was called to do. But then the reality is I needed a break. I knew that I needed to get some input myself to really bed down and get some foundation. So I took a year off working for Christians because it takes its toll after a while working for Christians. So I went to work nights at Subway, but within 3 weeks I was managing the store. So it shows the level that I was on there. Um, but then I went straight back in as a youth and children's pastor for a village church in St Albans. I've been to LPO, Spring Harvest Holidays. I was their program manager for 4 years. Living in France, it was a hard job, but someone had to do it.
Mm.
Um, but it was lovely. And then yeah, Scripture Union, and then more recently missions director at Youth for Christ. So it's been a whole journey. There's been a lot of people and a lot of things on the way. I've learned a lot, but I wouldn't go back and change any of it. It's some of it has been formational and a real slog, but when you look back, you can always see Jesus in the midst of the storm and the slog and the frustrations. And at the end of it all, I'm called to do what he's calling me into. Like I just happen to work in ministry. I don't know if I'd want to go into a secular job anymore. I'm just that engrossed in what a privilege it is to be able to pray in work every day and to do devotionals and have worship in meetings. And I don't know if I'd want to change that. Maybe it's because I'm in a bit of a bubble, but I feel I'm more equipped to go and help people to go out and do the stuff than it is for me to go out and do the stuff necessarily.
We've each got a calling and a gift. When we were in
Yeah.
church ministry, I was much more useful, standing at the front of the church, leading a massive team, worship, children's, whatever. My wife was always eager to get out and do stuff because we're different people, and I
Yeah.
think that's one of the things that we need to be not just okay with, but really celebrating that we are different people. We have different skills, talents, resources, experiences,
Yeah.
opportunities, and all that, and it all comes together, which is why my wife is much better than I am talking to people about Jesus. I'm much more better, terrible English, encouraging people in the church context. It's just who God has helped me to be over the years. Now I lead a radio station, which is completely different, which I love. Let's move on a little bit then. So rural missions. So your second birthday today, which is very cool. Happy birthday.
Yeah. Thank you.
Um, I'm not going to sing a song. But how did you find yourself into rural missions? Because here's what I know of rural missions, and you can then say, "Oh no, that's not it at all."
That's the other one.
Well, that's the other one. So, rural missions to me was a group that went around supporting rural churches, which is the obvious bit. So, churches that are sort of out a little bit in somewhere, they're not really connected. And the bit I knew about rural missions was meeting people who knew of rural missions who said, what's lovely is we don't feel alone because there are
Hmm.
other rural churches just like us, and almost we didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping that's the same one because I'd hope that's what people have said of us. So, Rural Missions is 38 years old. It was founded by the Reverend Barry Osborne, and he basically came out of an organization called Mission for Christ, who used to go into villages and do mission. So they'd take the wagon, and it was the old school way of let's come in and do it for you. But then Barry got this real desire, like it's not about us coming to do, it's about us coming to journey with you and helping you to do what you're called to do. So to give that inspiration to help people not feel alone, to help them feel appreciated and resourced so that they can do what they're called to. So they Rural Missions, as it was called then when I took over, was Rural Mission Solutions. Now, to me, it sounded a bit like we were an IT firm coming to get your broadband installed. So, one of the first things I did was say, could we drop the solutions off the end? Because, again, we don't come to provide solutions and all the answers. We just come to provide a bit of clarity and a bit of headspace and to bring some encouragement for you to go. So, it has been a journey. It wasn't easy taking over from a founder. I can promise you that one. He never took a salary, so we're almost had to rebuild from the ground up. So I've had to put in all the employment policies and the payroll systems and finances and all those kind of things. But we were blessed to have a legacy left, which is why Barry passed it on. Because bless him, he was 78 when I took over, and the trustees said, "This legacy is great, but you're not the one to action anything with it." Um, so we've had a bit of a founding, a bit of a bedrock to be able to situate ourselves on. And part of the legacy went, don't charge people for what you do, because the rural churches haven't got money. And if they do, they don't want to part with it until they see the proof of the pudding.
Mm.
So we are blessed that churches we are supporting are going, well, here's a gift out of our mission giving and all those at the end of it. Um, and actually, this week marks our 50th regular supporter, which is a real highlight and like a real milestone for me to go, this God is in this.
Yeah.
We are moving places. And today I've had four people get in touch that haven't been in touch before to say, will you come and support us? So God's on the move. It's a real pleasure to be part of it. And if we can equip more churches and more individuals to do what Jesus calls them to, then if we spend up, we spend up. But I've done it. We've run a good race and we've equipped and supported a lot of people. But we're a while off that yet, I hope.
Jolly good. Now there was something I just wanted to touch on as we sort of come towards the end very loosely. I met one of your colleagues at Hand in Hand who was in a different ministry that she'd run, and then she came to join in with what you're doing. And I
Yeah.
loved my version of what she said was, you said, why don't you come join us? She said, not a chance. And then God said, well, perhaps that's not the best answer. And
Yeah.
then conversations happened. So just talk us through all that, because there are people listening thinking, what's he on about?
Yeah, so Becky and Rebecca were part of a thing called the Resources Cupboard, which is still around, but it's now part of us. So I was a trustee of hers, and it's a children, youth, and family specialist charity. So they were trying to support small churches to become more missional with children, youth, and families. So I was like, this looks perfect. Like, I knew that we were struggling to be able to pay them regular, like the finance just wasn't there. But Becky and Rebecca are both just so incredible at what they do that it was hand in hand last year. I was chatting to her and I said, I feel God has said we need a conversation about you merging in. And you're right. She said, no. Oh, no. And she even sent me a long email after the weekend to go, these are my points why, but definitely not. Thank you so much for the offer. That's really kind of you. We'll keep going by and to see if we can get some more money. And I responded after a couple of days, I think. I just processed and prayed, and God said, well, here's the answers to all of the things she said, other than the no's. And so I just sent her an even longer email and went, I know you've said no, but I feel still God is saying yes, and these are the answers to your points. And she went, oh, yeah, maybe. And that was what? End of February 2025. 1st of June 2025, they merged over as a charity. They joined the payroll, both of them, and we've just hit it like there's no tomorrow. We've produced a children, youth, and families toolkit. We've just produced a brand new resource called Visiting a Church, because we're all in children's work, me, Becky, Rebecca, and we said we keep having the photocopied A4 page of a font. So whenever kids come into church for the first time or a school visit comes, it's always the same. Let's go do a brass rubbing of the wall. And so we're like, well, let's make a resource. And I know this is in so many rural churches now where they've just got 10 at the back. If a child comes for a baptism, a wedding, happens to wander in, a school visit comes, and it's the most expensive thing we do. Now hold on to your hat. They're 30 pence each.
Hey, steady
Like,
on.
yeah, yeah, I know. And people think I'm bonkers when I'm like, no, no, everything we do is free. The most expensive thing is 30p. That's not even a mileage. 45p a mile, I have to pay expenses. So we're not covering anything, but we're like, we just want to love, support, and honor the churches, especially in rural areas, and go, you are doing a phenomenal job. The quiet revival is happening. I know of many churches that have grown significantly because of people just believing in them. We had one church of 12 people 14 months ago. They're now 37 people in their church. They didn't even want to do a consultation day. They were forced by their new vicar. But what a beautiful thing it's been for their community and for that church.
Hmm.
So we take it seriously. We want to love and honor. And so if we can do that for the churches out there, then we'd love to.
What's that? 150% growth?
What is it? It's tripled anyway.
Lord. I don't do. I'm not
Yeah.
really good at maths. Can you
Yeah,
tell?
yeah. It's tripled in size, 12 to 37. It's just incredible.
I will get told off later about the percentages. I'm rubbish at this. That's not what I do. I just
Yeah,
ramble for a living. Rural missions. So, I mean, you're 2 years in, really, to, I suppose, redeveloping it from the ground up.
yeah.
Kind of, as in some ways, it's got a new direction. You feel you've got different people on board. What's the next 12, 24 months that you're trying to do with rural missions?
So we just want to continue to support. Now word is getting out. I want my team out on the road every day, every week, supporting churches. We have space in the diary for consultations, for our networks, for people to have some training, for people just to come and have a sit and have a cup of coffee with them and just go, it is a bit tough, isn't it? It is a bit rough. So I'd love to see our diary filling. We are in conversations with others. So even on Monday, I was down with the Bible Society and helping them explore the forgotten rural and bringing some wisdom and experience into that. So together, us and the Bible Society on the 30th of June are running a rural conference in Wales that is going to be a bilingual conference.
Wow.
And one of the big things that we'll be hitting, and my board don't know this, so if they're listening, surprise, um, is I believe truly we need another member of staff that is bilingual, specifically positioned in Wales to be able to support, because there is a majority church there, and a lot only speak Welsh, rightfully so. It's their nation, and we want to honour that rather than coming in where the English. I'm only going to speak in English. We want to go, what do you need support in? Well, we'd love support in our own language. So that's probably a big thing on our horizon is how do we help those churches in Wales and actually do it in a way that's suitable for them.
And respectful of who they are and where they are at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Every church is different. One program cannot fulfill the missional needs of every church. So we want to work with individual churches. Um, and if anyone from the Church of England hierarchy is listening, we are open to SMIB funding. Uh, there's a lot of money being spent in the Church of England. If they want us to have any, we'd be more than happy to accept and help your churches with you.
Leave them with some of the burden of that. Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's it.
Rural missions. How do people contact you if they are listening, or they know people, or they can just nudge people? What is it you're actually offering in a consultation, and how do they physically get hold of you and say, "Can you, we're struggling? Can you help?"
So easiest places to find us at ruralmissions.org.uk. All our details are on there, all our resources. The shop is on there, the consultations, the networks. We're on Instagram, Facebook, all those good places. A consultation day is basically helping to unpack what is mission, how do we do it, what are the needs in our community, and what are the skills that we already have that we can use to meet those needs in our community and share Jesus. So we're not looking for massive change. We're just looking for small intentional changes that you can make to become more intentional in your mission. So yeah, ruralmissions.org.uk is your best spot, and we'd love to support you. And even if you can't see what you want on the website, the phone is here. Just give me a ring. Let's have a chat and go. What can we do to support you and your context?
Cool. Bob, Rural Missions, it's been a pleasure just chatting to you a little bit more again today. Find out a bit more about your journey and where you've come from. And I think my little takeaway from this is the power of the simple. The simple act of listening is one of the most powerful tools that we have at our disposal as human beings. The fact we can actually say, tell me a story and mean it,
Yeah.
which is really key.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bob, ruralmissions.org.uk. Thank you.
Thank you.